Which Herod wanted to kill Jesus? Matthew's Gospel tells us that when Jesus was born in Bethlehem, there was a massacre of children by order of King Herod being the ruler of Judea at the time. Most people assume that he's the one who wanted Jesus dead. But if you read between the lines, it doesn't seem like that's the case. So then, which Herod wanted Jesus dead and why? Number 1, not Herod the Great. Many Christians think that it was Herod the Great who ordered the killing of the male children of Bethlehem. There's Herod the Great, the king of Judea, and Herod Antipas, the tetrarch of Galilee. Now, when Jesus was born in Bethlehem, both of these Herods were alive. They point out that there are no extra-biblical sources that corroborate Matthew's account. Nor do we have any archaeological evidence of such a horrific event. For example, Josephus Flavius, who wrote a detailed account of Herod the Great's reign, makes no mention of this. Also, if you think about it, if Herod really wanted to kill Jesus, then he wouldn't have waited until Jesus was 2 years old. No, he would have sent soldiers to kill him immediately after he was born. And since Mary and Joseph were relatives of his, they would have been very concerned for their own safety and would have fled to Egypt much sooner than they did. So in this scenario, the massacre never really happened. What Matthew is saying here is that Herod sent his soldiers to kill Jesus, but they couldn't find him. However, Herod Antipas ruled over the region of Galilee, which was some distance away from Bethlehem. See, when Herod the Great died, his son Antipas inherited the northern half of the kingdom, while the southern half went to another one of Herod's sons, Archelaus. But then again, the whole story may be an invention by Matthew to illustrate a theological point, namely, that Jesus is the true king of the Jews, and that Herod and his soldiers represent those who oppose God's plan. What do you think? Who was it? And how do you understand this passage? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Archelaus, though, proved to be an unfit and unpopular ruler, so much so that he was deposed by the Roman Emperor Augustus and replaced by Herod Antipas. Subscribe for more videos like this. Thank you, and until next time. Anyway, Matthew tells us that when Herod Antipas heard that there was a new king, the Jews, in the region, he was troubled. And so he gathered his officials and asked them where Jesus was so that he might find him and kill him. And they told him that Jesus was in Bethlehem. So it seems that it was Herod Antipas who sent soldiers to Bethlehem to kill Jesus, but only because he thought that that's where Jesus was. In reality, Jesus was already 2 years old at this point and was living with his parents in Nazareth. Herod the Great was the king of Judea. From 37 to 04 BC, he's famous for his excesses, including the building of the Second Temple Mount fortress, expanding the Temple Mount platform, building palaces, having many wives, and of course, for ordering the killing of all the male infants in Bethlehem. But again, if you read between the lines, it seems that this is not him. See, Matthew tells us that the wise men returned home another way after they had seen the child Jesus, so as not to tell Herod what had happened. And Herod didn't know where Jesus was until they had left. Now, if Herod the Great was indeed the king who ordered the killing of the male children, then he would have been fully aware that Jesus was in Bethlehem. After all, he was born there. Matthew, writing to a Jewish audience, would have made that connection very clear. But he didn't. Instead, he says that Herod didn't know where Jesus was until the wise men had left. So it wasn't Herod the Great, then who was it? Number 2, Herod Antipas. When you read the 4 Gospels, there are actually 2 Herods mentioned. No, 3. The massacre never happened. Some scholars argue that Matthew's account of the massacre of the male children of Bethlehem never actually happened. Do you think it was? So, in conclusion, if you ask me, it was definitely Herod Antipas who sent his soldiers to kill Jesus. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up